Finally, we have seen Baldur's Gate 3 in all of its glory. Well, not all the glory, since this is only pre-alpha version. Still, we have seen so much, and Larian Studios deserves praise for showing us in-depth gameplay. What I have noticed by watching YouTube videos of the showcase is that there were many dislikes and dissatisfaction, mostly coming from Baldur's Gate fans. I can understand that, because third installment has completely different engine and combat is turn-based, as opposed to real-time with pause. It does not look similar at all. Baldur's Gate 3 is essentially Divinity Original Sin 3 with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition rule set and Baldur's Gate lore. I didn't play Dungeons & Dragons tabletop, but from what I understand is that it is turn-based, meaning Baldur's Gate 3 might be closer to Dungeons & Dragons reiteration than first two Baldur's Gate games when you think about it. And it looks glorious, and I'm loving it. First of all, how good it all bloody looks is insane for classical RPG. Character details, environment details, textures, it all looks very much Divinity Original Sin-like, but more detailed and beautiful. Camera is something in between third person and isometric, and it looks great, but problem with such camera is that camera controls can be a nuisance at times. We'll see how many camera options will be there in final version, if there are some fixed ones as well would be nice, and how polished will all of that be. Audio work is stellar as well, voice acting, music, sound effects, no complaints there.
She is banging at that door, so let's go ask and introduce ourselves.
Blasted doors, What? Oh, it's you. I saw you on the ship. You survived, then?
Suddenly I saw what she saw, felt what she felt. Anger, confusion, resolve.
Ah! You've got the same thing I do. In your head. I felt it.
Okay, so I have a whole bunch of dialogue options. So what just happened to us is...
Now let's talk about combat and gameplay. Game seems really slow overall, and that is exactly how it needs to be if it wants to replicate Dungeons & Dragons to some extent. Every action matters, and there seems to be much more freedom than in Divinity Original Sin games. Actions such as shove, dip, jump and mage hand add so much more complexity and options as to what we can do to get the upper hand. Baldur's Gate 3 seems like a hard game to play, unforgivable at times, and having so much variety to our approach to the situation is fantastic. However, they really need to fix chance to hit because it seemed very broken and frustrating. Missing as many times as hitting with 90% chance to hit means something is off, and I hope it gets addressed. I really do not want another vanilla XCOM experience.
We translate the dice rolls into percentages so that you don't have to do all the mathematics yourself. So this gives me a 90% chance to hit, so that's a pretty good one. Also, gives you an extra type of action. Yes, I know that you're sneaking. Come on. Okay, well, let's hope that this one is going to go right.
There is not much to say about combat that we didn't know already from Divinity Original Sin games. It just has this insane freedom with added actions, meaning it is going to be even better than before. I love these new interactions and actions, especially situation where player pushed some small bastard from the balcony and then pushed the box he was standing on directly onto him from elevated position, dealing damage in the process. Considering there is so much freedom to what we can do, Divinity Original Sin's elemental system fits perfectly into this. They have already confirmed stuff like vaporization. Only thing that remains to be seen is how many elemental combinations will there be in the end. It seems that they are aware of the issue of Divinity Original Sin system where everything ends up on fire and whole screen starts burning. As they have said, they are already addressing this in Baldur's Gate 3, so that it won't happen at all.
Okay, well let's just do it and see what it gives, right? Show item. Not that bad. You can actually jump on them also, and that hurts them too.
One thing that always bothered me about Divinity Original Sin engine is the impact and effects while striking an opponent, especially with arrows. It lacks proper reaction, movement and impact. Instead, we have these heat effects that just don't work in my opinion. I would love for it to look more realistic with minimal effects only, such as blood particles flying. I don't think this will change because it is part of Divinity Original Sin engine and identity. Oh well, you can't have it all, I guess, it is just personal preference anyway. Exploration system that changes from real-time to turn-based seems to be the right choice. This was especially obvious during trap section where player could turn on turn-based mode to do various actions without needing to be extremely fast and precise. Also, having an option to throw box on the greasy floor and then jump on it to not to have to pass a difficult terrain check is awesome, and one of many small indications why Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be something special. Not to mention stuff like dipping a weapon into torch to create fire-based attacks. Turn-based exploration is especially useful in stealth situations where you want to sneak up on an enemy or NPC to perform actions such as backstab or pickpocket. It makes it easier and less frustrating overall. Biggest question that I have unanswered is how the world will be structured. Is it going to be Divinity Original Sin system with every act having its own area and being locked after we are done with it? Is it going to be Pillars of Eternity 1 or classic Baldur's Gate style where we enter a location from world map without traveling gameplay? My favorite system for classical RPGs is definitely Fallout 1 and 2 and Pillars of Eternity 2 with vast open world where you can go and do as you please, but I doubt it is going to be like that. If I had to guess, I would say Divinity Original Sin system, which in my opinion is the weakest out of all three. Now for some final thoughts. I really like what I saw. I think Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be an amazing game. It is Larian's vision of Baldur's Gate in the end, not BioWare's. Just be thankful BioWare is not doing this game, cause I am. I have read complaints that game is way too cheerful and bright with more humoristic approach to dialogue for a Baldur's Gate game. That might be so. I don't mind that personally, as I can understand this is Larian's version of Baldur's Gate. I do agree that I would prefer Obsidian making BG3 and it would hit closer to home, but it is what it is. Larian is closer to Dungeons and Dragons, while Obsidian would make it more similar to BG with their combat system and engine. One thing I'm sure of is that both studios can do amazing CRPGs, so let's give Larian a chance before jumping on hate bandwagon because game looks different than your game from 20 years ago. As I see it, Baldur's Gate 3 looks fantastic.